Hey, welcome to the Brisbane Small Business Show. Today, really excited. Well, look, we're well into the heart of when we need to get serious about thinking about finances, as if we haven't been thinking about finances for the last 3 months. And I've got Susan Delarue with me to come and have a chat. The reason I've got Susan on board is she's a registered BAS agent, and it's so important to talk about finances at this time of year before June 30, because after June 30, it's too late to do so many of those different things that you need to do. Hey, Susan.
Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, I sort of fell into bookkeeping way back before it became cool. So back in 1980 something.
I'll let you in on a secret. It's still not cool.
It's still not cool. Well, it is to me. I failed in maths at high school, so, who would have thought that this is what I would do for the rest of my life, basically. So I joined a rather large concrete construction company down in Canberra, and as an accounts clerk, and sort of fell in love with it. And back in about 1995, I was asked by a subcontractor of an employer that I was working for. I was their CFO. Mm-hmm. And they asked me if I would do for them what I was doing for the boss. And so on weekends, I did his subcontractor's work.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
Monday to Friday, I did his.
Yep.
So I got a pretty good rep down there that, A, I'd tell the truth. B, don't take notice of what the manager says, just go straight to the horse. And, that I wouldn't do them wrong. So after about 5 years, I left there. I was doing about 70 to 80 hours a week, long weeks.
Well, by the time you're already working full-time and then you're doing that on weekends, and I imagine you picked up a couple of other clients all the time. It wasn't just the one.
No.
And so all of a sudden, as you said, 70, 80-hour weeks, which really isn't the lifestyle many of us aspire to, is 70 and 80-hour weeks. So
it took a lot. It took a lot out of me. I left my employer back in 99. I came up to Queensland for a 2-week holiday and I never went home. So
in 99, you came up for a 2-week holiday?
Yeah. March of 99, I came up for a 2-week holiday and I never went home.
Look, I fully appreciate the fact that they didn't have GPSs back then, but did you lose your map or what?
I didn't get lost. I came up to visit my little brother. He was getting married at the end of the month. And, I just put feelers out and I got a job and I just didn't go back. So I stayed with him for a couple of weeks and then got a share house with a few other girls. And
he was getting married after all.
He did get married, yeah, he did. But I didn't go. So, that's another entirely different story. But
we'll talk about that one in another 60 seconds. But you've got a list of a whole lot of things that people need to do before the end of the year. It will really help if they do a whole lot of them before the end of the year, because there's so many different things with finances at this time of year that we need to do that if we leave it too late, we lose out on tax deductions, or we enter stuff in, we can even get fined and all that sort of stuff. So it's so important to do so many of these things in the right time and in the right order to make sure that that we're staying on top of everything, yeah?
It does, yeah. And the longer you leave it, the worse it's going to get. So what could be just like a little anthill to start with, a couple of weeks behind, can end up to... I've actually had clients that have been 6 and 7 years behind.
Don't know how they
and
do
that's
it.
not just in compliance paperwork, but that's in their wages and everything as well. So they pay their people, what they thought, and just keep on going. And turned out it cost them a lot more money in the long run.
Yeah, look, and of course, if you don't do things appropriately, you can lose the deductibility of the superannuation payments and all that sort of stuff, which is really, really expensive. When all of a sudden there's money that you're paying out that you're not getting to claim a deduction on, you're losing, 30%. of that money that the taxman would have been happy for you to have. But if you choose not to get it done on time. So there are lots of different things. Now, the taxman is being generous right now. They are being kind. If you are behind, now is a really good time to catch up, because they're going to be very forgiving of you lodging stuff late, and they're going to say, catch up on those payments as quickly as you possibly can, mate, because they've been told by the government, you are not in the business of sending small business broke.
Exactly. And with the pandemic, it's, well, I classify it as a godsend, because it actually allows small business to actually catch up on what they've gotten bad at, but not only that, it's sort of giving them the opportunity to go out and fix what's broken. And, you know, if something's not working in their office, then find out why, what can I do, and get it sorted. So in a way, it's sort of like a pause. It's a pause for small business owners to go, right, we're not going to look at this as a really bad thing, but we are going to look at it as something a little bit more positive.
Absolutely. Some of those times we just need that time and space to go, hang on, now I know I should have been doing that better. Hey, now's a good time to start doing it better.
Yeah. And I've just picked up a new client who had absolutely no idea that there was actually technology out there that could actually help him with his quoting. And he's like, is that why they're all out there going click, click, click with their phones? And I'm like, pretty much. So save that little piece of receipt where you've written a dimension on the back of it. I said, even some of these quoting apps can actually get you to the point of knowing how many nails you need, knowing how many screws you need, how many pieces of lumber you need, what the dimensions are for concrete. And then all you have to do is just ring up your supplier and go, hey, I need this. It's just so much easier.
Submit the quote to your client, and when they accept it, then all of a sudden it goes straight off and it's all automated. And look, it's amazing. Yeah, technology is truly amazing these days. I've got to say, the ability for us to just automate a whole lot of processes that we used to have to think about is absolutely amazing. So let's get onto this checklist anyway. So it starts with how long you may not have been good for.
Exactly. So that's basically going back to whatever system that you use and seeing where the last entry was, and going back and going, right, okay, was it 4 or 5 weeks ago? I thought it was only last weekend that I did it. So once you've done that,
it could even be calling up your accountant and finding out how long it is since you've lodged a BAS statement.
It could be if your accountant's doing them. A lot of people get their significant others who didn't sign on for the job to do it as well. So yeah, it could be. If you're sort of doing it yourself, then it's just basically going back, seeing when the last lot of entries were that you did, what the last date was, and then going on from there.
And the cool thing about what you've got for us here, because you've actually got a checklist. So rather than sitting there and going, it's so long ago, and getting overwhelmed straight away, we've got a checklist. And all you got to do is do one thing at a time, and then move down that list and check off the next thing and check off the next thing, so that you can actually take a lot of the stress out of it. You may need some help with some of the points, but the important thing is that it's really nice and clear, so that it's easy for you to do.
I'm a great believer in every little thing takes a little time, and the simpler that you can keep things, the easier it is for people to understand, and for especially with systems and management that you're doing. If you want to bring somebody else in, it makes it easy for them just to pick up where you're at and not have to ask 60 million questions to do it. So I try and make everything that I do easy enough for me to rip somebody off the street and go, hey, can you understand this, and see if they can actually pull it up themselves. Saves myself a lot of time trying to figure out what's being done. It's just easy to go, okay, what section are you up to? Boom, all right, we'll see what we can do from there.
And if you find that you're working that 70 hours a week again, you can drag that person off the street to give you a hand, which is fantastic. Exactly. So the first one is check how far you are, check how far it is since how long ago it is since you had everything up to date, and start from there. Nice and simple step. Step 2.
Find and collate the paperwork. Could be as easy as exactly. It could be as easy as having it all thrown into a tray, or a shoebox, or in case in a tradie's case, the glove box.
It may even be just this mysterious folder that you have on your emails that just says invoices.
Box. Yeah.
Oh,
or
no,
junk
no.
mail.
I'm more
Depends on
organised than that. I've got one called invoices.
I have two, actually, surprisingly. With the technology, though, these days, there are things called OCRs. Don't ask me what OCR means, because I can never remember. I'm hopeless.
Optical character recognition is what OCR means.
There it is. Thank you. And you can actually just take a photo of your receipt, and it will upload it straight to what I call an archiving system. That archiving system will then keep that receipt there for 7 years, automatically delete it when it needs to. But the good thing is you can actually go in, code, download it straight to your data file, and you've got a copy of the receipt there, and you've got it forever, and you have a copy of, if you need to, when you're on the run, have a look and see where it is. So I always say to my subbies and my clients, if you can take a selfie, which everybody can, then you can take a photo of a receipt. I don't care what they do with their receipts afterwards, but as long as it's up on that system, that's
particularly those heat ones, because they kind of fade over a little bit of time anyway. So, hey, whether you do it when you're standing there in the shop and you've just bought your coffee, or whether you wait till you get home and you do it as you're about to drink your coffee, either or. But it's just, do that. So collate your paperwork, and don't forget your rego.
Your rego, CTP, insurances, and any subscriptions. Oh, PayPal and eBay. Keep your receipts for those as well. But yeah, everybody seems to forget that rego is not just one page. It is 2 pages, front and back, plus a CTP. The CTP tells you at the bottom whether or not you're GST enabled, which means that you can claim some GST on your CTP. Same with insurances. It's only a partial GST. And some subscription documents, say for argument's sake, MYOB Xero, they send you an invoice. And
so we're really right down in detail here. We don't want to get into detail. We want to stay at high level. So what we're going to talk about, though, is find and collate all your receipts. When we talk about collating them, find them and put them in date order. Start with your oldest on top, or put your oldest on bottom, and then it's just easier if you do. I find it that way anyway. Yeah.
Month to month. So just put January, February, March, and then just go through and do them that way. The system automatically puts it in date order anyway. So just if you have January, make sure you got all of January's, all of February's, all of March's. Just put them in there.
So what are some of the programs that you can just use to take photos? You said there were programs. So there's Receipt Bank I know of. What other ones are there?
Yep, I use a one called Auto Entry, which is exactly the same as Receipt Bank. But there's also another one that's an Australian one I heard about the other day. But I forget the name of it. So
but you're going to hunt down that name, and you're going to put it in the comments to this later on, because I would love to know the name of the Australian one, because of course we do want to support as many local things as we possibly can. So once you've got all of your receipts together, you've got them into at least month order, so that then you can do the data entry on those. The next thing you want to do?
The next thing you want to do is enter it. Or actually don't download your bank statements, or find all your bank statements, and that includes your credit card and any provisioning accounts, not just the one that you use on a day-to-day basis.
So that's also your bank statements, also your PayPal account that you just mentioned earlier, maybe IntegraPay or any of those other funds, Stripe, and all of those other things.
Square, all of them.
So make sure that you've got them all printed out, so that it's nice and easy for you to use later on.
Yeah.
And then
you enter the data into your system. So that's your all your invoices and receipts.
Mm-hmm.
You throw them into the system, upload them, send them in. Then you just, as you're going, you double check to make sure that your GST is coded correctly so that it's only the proportion that needs to be entered. And you must check to make sure you're putting it in the right account.
Yep. Because not everything has automatically 10%. So, and also when we're talking about 10% of your goods are GST, that's not 10% of your invoice. It's actually 1/11th of your invoice. So
it is.
Make sure you're putting the right number in for GST. That's what we're saying.
And there are some things like, so if you go to Aldi, so a lot of small businesses go to Aldi and they pick up their specials.
Yep.
On the bottom of the receipt, there's a GST proportion and a non-GST proportion.
Yep.
So you just got to make sure that you've got the GST free and the GST side of it in there as well.
Excellent. To make sure that you get that part right. So then you want to start thinking about if you've got staff, if you've got somebody working for you, there's a couple of special things that you need to do.
There is. You've got to make sure that you've entered all the wages and you've entered them exactly the same as and gotten the same figures as what you've paid them. Then you have to check to make sure that super is up to date and paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one for not incurring a lot of admin, GIC charges, and interest.
Sorry, GIC.
That's a super. Sorry, it's an SGC charge. So it's a percentage interest or a percentage per day per employee charge. So that could turn into a couple of $1,000 depending on how long you've actually left your super to pay.
So it's making sure that you're super up to date at all times, which means that you've paid it within 28 days of the end of a quarter.
Yep.
I know enough about this to be dangerous, but normally just to myself. The other thing is for super, particularly in the June time period, if you pay that before the end of June, because you know what your super thing is going to be, it's actually a deduction in this year. But if you wait until July, it doesn't become a deduction until next year.
Next year, yeah.
So if you've got a few employees, that can be, that can come up to a few $1,000s.
It can. And the way you can do that by either guesstimating what the superannuation is going to be to the end of the month, or just stopping off at a certain point and going, right, this is how much super we will be paying into GIC, into superannuation fund, and then taking from there and doing the rest of it for the end of for the next year. A lot of people put it in for next year, so it's because it can get a little bit crazy trying to work out when to stop. So once you've done all your super and it's paid up to date, it's probably advisable to check your leave accruals, so your holiday, sick leave, parental leave, whatever.
Yep.
And make sure that the accrual matches or is pretty much on par. But if it isn't, you can go back and adjust it. So if you forgot to, say, Joe Blogg took 3 weeks off in March, minus the pandemic, but 3 weeks off in March, but you forgot to actually put it on his wages, then you've got to reduce that by the 3 weeks, so the 120 hours or whatever it was.
Absolutely. And then there's your other expenses, like as you got here, like your child support and other things that you've got there.
Yeah.
If you've got different holding accounts, make sure that you've reconciled them back to zero, so that at the end of the year they're zero, so it's nice and clean for your accountant. They're not charging you lots of money while they're trying to work this stuff out.
Exactly, yeah. So if you can bring them back to zero, that means just allocating them where they need to be allocated, pay what needs to be paid. A lot of it's just a journal entry and just going in and doing the transfers. So once we've done all the clearings and done all that, then it's then it's just a process of matching your bank feed and doing your bank statements and making sure that they reconcile. So your actual reconciliation in your platform must match what's on this bank statement. There's a reason why they give them to you, and your reconciliation does not stop at just matching what the feed says. So once that's reconciled, then it's a good idea to check that your ATI client account is actually
ATI.
ATO. Sorry, so your ATO client account.
We're just checking out. We all know who the ATO is, but very few of us know who ATI is.
Sorry, I've been a bit dyslexic.
Secret Intelligence Organisation.
So yeah, just to make sure that your client account matches your liability account. That's a big thing. So that actually tells the accountant what's actually owed. And because the GIC, which is a general interest charge for anything that's overdue, and they there is also, like, I think, late fees and things that they throw on there. They're not actually an expense per se, but they do need to be accounted for as well, because that actually increases your liability. Just to make sure that they balance. And once they balance, then you can go on to the next point, which is checking your profit and loss report. So once you've checked your profit and loss report, it's advisable to do it for 3 to 4 months. Over a 3 and 4 month period, that's just for you to double check to make sure that there aren't any massive explosions within the actual account on a month-to-month basis in any way, shape, or form. If there is, it usually means just jumping into the actual ledger, having a look to see what it could have been, because you may have just misallocated it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important just to make sure and have a quick look and go, hey, no, this is as I would expect. And even through COVID, having a quick look at different account balances and going, hey, this is way down, and going, oh, that's because I didn't actually travel at all. That's why my petrol is near on zero, or whatever else. So
Exactly.
It's just a good idea every quarter to go through and just make sure that things look reasonable, and that any big lumpy payments, that all of a sudden you can see what they are. And if all of a sudden you're missing payments, to look at the months and go, is there a logical reason why I don't have that, or is it that I'm missing an invoice?
Exactly. You may have just forgotten to put one in, or you hadn't received one. So it's probably a good idea also to keep a track of the statements that your suppliers give you as well, just to make sure that you haven't missed any invoices, because there's nothing worse than traveling on at a nice rate of pace and then finding out that you missed a $15,000 invoice from a supplier from way back when it has not been paid. And you've already allocated this month's budget and gone, oh, where am I going to find the money for that? And it sort of hits you in the base of the gut to sort of go, oh my God, I forgot, I missed it.
Absolutely. So let's keep moving along. So we're doing that. We're matching. Where are we up to?
We're up to number 15, up to number 16, which is to check your assets. Check your assets, check your payable transactions, and check your receivables. So with your assets, make sure that what you've purchased is an actual asset and not a repair or maintenance or should have been materials. Then with your asset purchases, you just check to make sure they're real. And by real, I mean they haven't been paid by cash or credit card and you forgot to put it in, or it hasn't been double entered. So it is quite easy to double enter something if you've forgotten how far back you've had to go, or you're waiting on a credit for it that hasn't been received. So you can get back onto your supplier and go, hey, I'm still showing this up on the statement. So that's where you can check your statements and sort that out.
Absolutely.
With your receivables, same thing. Just check to make sure they're real, so that you haven't double invoiced, that they didn't pay you in cash and it didn't go into the system, it went into your back pocket, or that they're not bad debts. And by bad debt, something over 12 months old, and that you need to write it off. And again, all three of them, just adjust it where necessary. So that's it's pretty much the only thing that you can do to make sure that your ledgers are spot on. With the payables, it's advisable to use their statements, just to make sure that everything's in there that should be in there.
Fantastic.
So then, once all of that's done, It's basically just taking a copy of all of your asset purchases, because your accountant will ask for them. Shove them in a folder, name it 19, 20, 21, whatever. Throw each one in there. Then when he does ask for them, or even if he doesn't, you can just email them straight over and go, there they are. And the same with your bank statement. So once your bank statement's all sorted out and reconciled to the 30th of the 6th, take a copy of that statement and chuff that off to him as well in the same email. And that way he's not going to come back and ask you for them again, or you're going to have to go searching for them.
Absolutely, which is really, really important. So, no, that's fantastic. I love the fact that you've got a quick little checklist. In fact, we've got this as a download. We're going to put a link in this streams after this, so that people can find it nice and easy, so they can go through the checklist. If they do want support as they're going through that, of course, you're happy for them to give you a quick call and give them a hand?
Oh, definitely. That's what I'm here for. I sort of, with all the clients that we went through COVID, I made the decision not to charge them for it, because I just felt that it was something that I could add to their value, and it would come back to me at a later stage. So yeah, it's sort of 5-10 minute call.
So if you've got basic questions, absolutely call Sue. If you wanted to do stuff, of course she's going to charge you eventually, but
yeah, we all need to live.
Like the rest of us, strangely enough, she needs to eat. I don't know why. We kind of get into that habit. So it is really important. Look, Sue, I want to thank you very much for coming along today. Your 20-point checklist, way more detailed than what I was thinking when we were first having this conversation. Really, really helpful for everyone, though, and really appreciate the time that you've put into the checklist and coming on and sharing your information with everyone today.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time to introduce me to everybody.
That's what we do. So thanks very much.
No problem.